Hello friends, my name's the Real Emile and welcome back to Reach the Peak, the show where you guys recommend the cars and then I take them up our hill climb course to see which one can come out on top. As always, we have 5 vehicles here for you today. They're very much a mixed bag. Let's get into it with the first car of today, which is the 2014 Lykan HyperSport. This thing has 780 horsepower, 707 foot-pound of torque, it weighs 3,042 pounds. It is an S2 class car, 937 MPI when equipped with snow tyres. It is our most powerful car, our torquiest vehicle, and the highest MPI vehicle that we have here today. The Lykan HyperSport is a hypercar I've never really cared about. I don't particularly care about the way it looks. I don't really care about its performance. It's basically just a rebodied rough CTR3. Basically, people either really hate this car or really love it. Me personally, I'm just, I don't care. I just don't care about this vehicle. That being said, what is it like to drive? Well, it's bad. This is not its natural habitat, and you can tell that. It is a very tricky car to drive up here. I just really did not like the way this thing drives. You know, of course, it's, for those of you who don't know, it's mid-engine rear drive. And when you're putting 780 horsepower through the rear wheels on snow, it's usually a recipe for disaster. Now, granted, the McLaren P1 dealt with it relatively well. Between this and the P1, which is probably the closest comparison so far, I would definitely go with the P1. The P1 was a much better handling vehicle. Admittedly, this vehicle is probably quicker in a straight line because it hasn't got as much aero or so on to deal with, but ultimately the P1 is a much better snow plugger if you're going to be using that for, well, that purpose. It did struggle. It really did struggle. I mean, to be fair, as a whole, the Lykan isn't particularly amazing anyway. You know, it doesn't really perform particularly well when you compare it to most hypercars. But up here, yeah, it struggles. You can see it sort of get bounced around on the bumps a bit. One thing it did have over the P1 is it didn't get quite as upset over the bumps as that thing did. But even still, you know, that's only a minor advantage because it still didn't like the bumps. Yeah, ultimately the Lykan just wasn't the car I was particularly impressed with. I wouldn't rush out to drive it ever again. Yeah, just not my cup of tea. Next up, we have a four-wheel drive vehicle. In fact, it's our only four-wheel drive vehicle here today. This is a 2012 Nissan GT-R, 542 horsepower, 466 foot-pound of torque, 3,887 pounds of weight. It is an S1 class car, 879 MPI when equipped with snow tyres. It is our heaviest vehicle here today, although only by 10 pounds. Yeah, the GT-R does weigh a hell of a lot. As in, like, a hell of a lot more than you'd probably expect it to. Admittedly, you know, it is, I guess, a GT car. I guess that's the best place to categorise it, but even still, you know, it does weigh a hell of a lot. Admittedly, though, again, it does have that four-wheel drive system, and it does have a decent amount of power. Ultimately, what did it drive like? It was very good. As you'd probably expect from this vehicle, you know, it dealt with the course very well. It's got four-wheel drive, decent amount of power, probably about the same sort of power that you get out of the Group B cars. Of course, it weighs a lot more than them, but that's not the point. Other than that, it's fairly quick in a straight line. It is a little bit choppy on the ride. Yeah, you'd kind of expect that. This is sort of a hardcore GT car, if you will, so over the bumps, it does get a little bit sad. The suspension on this thing is rock solid. Other than that, though, it certainly is not a bad car. Me personally, on the GT-R, I still don't particularly know. I kind of like them. I much prefer the newer model. The 2017, I kind of like. This particular model, though, the 2012, just it's a little bit too much of a computer on wheels for me, personally. That's just me, but there you go. Yeah, so of course, struggling with the bumps, you would expect it to struggle over the ice lakes here, and you can just see it sort of bounce around. Admittedly, I did have to slow down fairly considerably. I almost touched the wall there as well, so yeah, there is a tiny bit of understeer to compete with in this car. Of course, you're going to get that from basically every single four-wheel drive vehicle, so it wasn't really worth noting. But yeah, the GT-R is a solid car to drive. If you need to drive a GT car on snow, I guess the GT-R is probably the best place to go for that. Next up, we have a bit of an obscure supercar. This is the 1988 Lamborghini Jalpa, 255 horsepower, 231 foot-pound of torque, 3,329 pounds of weight. It's an A-class car, 737 MPI when equipped with the snow tyres. The Lamborghini Jalpa. Now, this is a very, very interesting car. Now, this thing came in as DLC in Horizon 2, and I wasn't interested in it. I didn't drive it in Horizon 2, I didn't drive it during Forza Motorsport 6, and I hadn't driven it up to this point on Horizon 3. I just sort of ignored it, and written it off as just, oh, it's an 80s supercar with not too much power, and it doesn't look particularly great either. You know, not really my thing. And then I drove it for this. It is excellent. It is a very, very, very solid vehicle to drive up here. It's got rear-wheel drive, mid-engine, of course, as you'd expect in the 80s. But it handles its power really well. Admittedly, there's not a lot of it, and I guess that kind of helps it. But, you know, it's just... it doesn't get bogged down at all. It doesn't struggle with the hills. You can stick the power down whenever you want, essentially. It is a really, really, really very, very good vehicle to drive. Another good thing with this vehicle is it makes a fantastic noise. I believe there's a V8 in this. In fact, I'm fairly certain it's a V8, and it does sound incredible. Yeah, I think I've fallen in love with this car. It's just a really, really solid vehicle to drive up here. I'm probably going to be doing a rally car build on this in a couple of days' time, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, seriously, if you want a supercar for the snow, and you know you'd kind of prefer rear-wheel drive, look no further than the Lamborghini Jalpa. It is a superb vehicle. Highly, highly recommend it. Just go drive it. Seriously, it is. I'm speechless. I was not expecting the Jalpa to be nearly as good as it was. It's just such a strange thing, because again, I'd never look at this car twice, but now, you know, I'm singing its praises. It can be a crazy world here on Reach the Peak. An example of how crazy a world it can be is we go from a Italian supercar to an American boat. This is the 1964 Chevrolet Impala, 425 horsepower, 425 foot-pound of torque, 3,877 pounds. It is an A-Class car, 729 in PI. Yes, this thing is surprisingly lighter than a modern GT-R, which you really wouldn't expect looking at it, because this thing is definitely a school bus. Yeah, okay, so a bit of backstory. Chevrolet Impala, I'm not a huge fan of these sort of 60s American cars. Well, in fact, I'm not a fan of very many American cars until the more modern era. The 64 Impala has just never been a car I'm particularly interested in. I don't really see the appeal of it. It's sort of just a box on wheels for me. That's about as long as a school bus. It just isn't my thing, and I can safely say, unlike with the Jalpa, after driving this, I don't want to drive it again. It is quick in a straight line. I will give it that. This thing is phenomenally quick. In fact, it has, you know, 180 horsepower more than that Jalpa I just drove. And you can really feel it. It has a ridiculous amount of power, which is good for straight line speed. The problem is, it is not good for handling, and this thing is atrocious to drive. It is so bad. The suspension is soft, which usually means that the weight of the car gets thrown around a lot, and when the weight of the car hits the rear end, it will spin. It may have 425 horsepower, but trying to get any of those horsepowers to land anywhere remotely near the ground is a challenge and a feat within itself. Yeah, not a good handling car. You see, with the Jalpa, if you want a rear-wheel drive rally car, go drive that. It's fantastic. If you want a rear-wheel drive rally car, muscle car, don't look at the Impala. Just walk away. Go to the Dodge Dart. Go to the Charger Daytona. They will treat you a hell of a lot better than this thing would. I mean, I guess it's fun. I will say that much. You're definitely on your toes and having fun while driving this vehicle, but yeah, just don't. Just don't. That's my honest to God thing. Maybe on dry land it's better, but I don't think it'd be that much better, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, so there you go. And finally today, oh dear, it appears an old-timer has invaded our course, because it's time for the 1940 Ford Coupe, the oldest car here in Horizon 3 as far as I'm aware. 85 horsepower, wow. 155 foot-pound torque, which is actually quite impressive. 2,970 pounds of weight, again, kind of impressive. It is a D-Class car, 497 in PI. It is the least powerful vehicle here today. It's the least torquey vehicle here today. It's the lightest vehicle here today. And it's the lowest in PI, which usually isn't a good thing. And predictably, as you can see, what is the Ford Coupe like? Well, it's awful, but you'd kind of expect it to be. It's a slow vehicle, there's no getting around that. It has got an impressive torque figure, you know. I'm not going to take that away from it. 155 foot-pound of torque, that isn't bad for this sort of vehicle. Granted, 85 horsepower is horrible, but the torque isn't too bad, I guess. I thought that might help it up the course a bit. Didn't really do anything. Again, it's not a particularly heavy car either, 2,970 pounds, but the problem is, you need power to match that weight. You know, 2,970 pounds up here for a car to do well, it needs about 300 horsepower to match it. At least, and this, no. It is going to be a slow car. I'm not, you know, hugely surprised. We've had quite a few of the sort of slow cars go up the course before. The Fiat X19, I guess, is going to be the closest comparison to this. The Reliant Supervan, maybe. Because the Reliant was surprisingly good up here, if we're being honest, actually. Yeah, I didn't have high hopes for the Coupe, and it's definitely delivered in droves. Not a good car. Not a good car. I wouldn't really recommend it for anything, unless you're going to do that strange drag racing glitch where you leave the tyres off and, well, I guess it's not a glitch, where you leave the drag tyres off and make super fast drag cars that are like D-Class and C-Class. This is probably useful for that. For anything else, though, God no. If you're going to climb a mountain, go get the Mercury Coupe. If you want to drive something stupid and slow, get the Mercury Coupe. Get the Fiat X19. Just anything that isn't this, really. Hell, take the Reliant up there, because you'll have a hell of a lot more fun. The problem is, you know, the Reliant was slow, but it was fun because of the way it is. The Isetta was slow, but I guess, in a way, kind of amusing. The Ford Coupe isn't amusing in the slightest. It's just a slow car. Yeah, I haven't really got anything more to say about it. Also, this is about the coolest livery I could find for this vehicle. I mean, it's a pretty cool looking livery. Props to whoever made it, I guess, but yeah, don't. That's my. If you need a D-Class snow car, you're actually, to be fair, probably better off just skipping snow tires and not using them instead of putting them on something like this. Anyways, we move on to the leaderboard, and the Nissan GT-R is the fastest car of today, going to 7th place with a 203.257. Pretty decent time, beats a Bugatti EB110. It sort of lands around where most of the supercars is, so it's pretty impressive overall, to be fair. It's not too far off the standard MG Metro as well. Moving down the board some more, we find the Lykan HyperSport in 24th place, 211.565. It is 0.5 of a second off of the P1 McLaren, a little bit faster than a Range Rover. Take the P1 over it. I mean, hell, take the CLK GT-R if you really have that much of a choice in the matter. The Lykan just isn't a particularly amazing car to drive. Did do better than I expected, though. The Lamborghini Jalpa goes into 56th place with 221.842, which is surprisingly respectful. Does beat Opel Manta by 0.6 of a second, beats Donkavor, 037 Stradale, it beats that. A little bit down on the 695 by Posta, but then again, that's a front-wheel drive hot hatch, and they usually do pretty well up here, so there you go. Moving down to more, Impala 64 finds itself in 69th place with a 225.546. It is quicker than an RX-7 FC, but it is about 2 seconds down on the Charger Daytona and the Dodge Dart, which I would highly recommend over the Impala, but nevertheless, it's not too terrible a showing from that car. And finally, in 97th place, we find the Ford Coupe, a 310.224. It is 12 seconds up on the Reliant Supervan, it is 9 seconds down on the Fiat X19, and it's even more than that on the Mercury Coupe. Don't drive the Ford Coupe, ever, really, if I'm being honest. Anyways, friends, there we go. Thank you all very much for watching. As always, if you have cars you'd like to recommend for Reach the Peak, simply type them down below in the comment section and I will add them to my list. With that all being said and done, friends, thank you all very much for watching. Mine has been the Real Emile, and until next time, a farewell.